Nathan, he's in Texas on Skype. Go ahead, Nathan.
I want to thank the previous caller who talked about the tattooing because I was actually in a tattoo parlor earlier today. And thank goodness that I learned that it was against the word.
The word of Jesus, you mean?
Actually, it's in the Old Testament.
Oh, so it's the word of God.
I found out what the Quran says as well.
Okay, now look, when we brought this up earlier, I kind of questioned it. I thought it was the whole your body is a temple thing, but Mark, you said there's a different explanation.
Leviticus 19.
And you never really gave what that explanation was. So
it's
maybe
a Bible
you could tell
verse.
Well, maybe you could tell me more about what it says here in a moment, and we'll hear from Nathan as well with the Muslim side of things. It's Free Talk Live. We have Nathan on the line. He was talking about tattoos. There was a statement made earlier about what the Bible apparently says about tattoos. I had thought that the prohibition was on doing something bad to your temple, but as though your body is a temple, right? You're not supposed to put bad things in it, was what I had understood about it. But Mark, you said there's a more specific issue with Leviticus or something like
Leviticus 19:28. You got a favorite version?
No, I don't read the Bible.
Okay. I'm fond of the New International Version. Do not cut your bodies for the dead or put tattoo marks on yourself. I am the Lord. It ends up, by the way, a lot with that. Like, I am the Lord.
It's sort of like it's the law, right? That's like the new version of that.
Sure.
Buckle up. It's the law. Buckle up. I am the Lord.
So, you're not supposed to tattoo yourself. You're not supposed to make marks in remembrance of the dead. And this was a relatively common practice, still common today. You'll see people walking around with in memory of
R.I.P.
Yeah, sure. Things like that. So there you go.
All right. So
every time I hear the Lord recently, I don't know why I've been just thinking about this because you guys probably were a couple days ago having a conversation about the word liege.
Yes.
Yeah, and so
lords.
I was been thinking about it, and every time I hear like the Lord or people, things being referred to as Lord or liege, I think of landlords.
Yes.
And so like when you're talking about this, I think like, thou shalt not paint the walls, thou shalt not have a pet without written consent. That's just like.
So what was the thrust of your tattoo related call here tonight, Nathan?
Oh, well, that's a good one. I am the landlord, right? So it was interesting because I was curious what the Quran says about tattooing, and maybe it might be a little more permissive than the Torah. And in fact, it is, because the Quran doesn't actually say anything about tattoos.
Interesting.
But, and here's the catch, in Islam, there's also the Hadith, which are sayings and teachings about the life of Muhammad.
Yes.
And the most reliable of these was assembled about 200 years after Muhammad died by a man named Sahih al-Bukhari. And he says that women who practiced tattooing, and as well as those who removed hair from their faces and those who created spaces between their teeth artificially to look beautiful, I'm not sure what that means, those ladies are cursed. And there's actually a dialogue, which I think is very instructive. Right afterward, a woman questions Abdullah and says, well, why are you saying this? And she says, by Allah, I have read the whole Quran, but I have not found such a thing. And the holy man, Abdullah, replies, by Allah, if you had read it carefully, you would have found it where it says, and what the apostle gives you, take it, and what he forbids you, abstain it.
So he's claiming to be an apostle, and so therefore anything he says goes, is the idea?
Basically.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing about it, is that that's actually true in pretty much, almost all religions I can think of. There might be exceptions, but there's always a caste.
They're always very malleable to some extent.
Yeah. There's always a priest, some kind of holy person who interposes between you and the divine figure.
Sure, that is the nature of an organized religion, is that there is somebody, in most cases, with the exception of the Quakers, and maybe a few others.
The Quakers are you could barely even call them organized. They certainly have.
They sit in a circle, and that's organization.
But this is really the catch all along is that this is religion. This is the problem I have with religion, is it's somebody says, hey, God's a-talking to me. You better listen, right? And then I'll tell you what God says. You'll be just fine. You listen to me. And that's a terrible thing. If you're listening to that, you're being fooled. In my opinion, if God speaks, he speaks to you about things that are relevant to you.
Yeah, directly.
And that's, anything else, anything other than that is just somebody yickety-yakking about the crap they believe.
Good call tonight, Nathan. Thanks for it. Toll-free number 855.
That's why I don't accept the Bible as the Word of God, because that's God talking to somebody else.
It's an interpretation. 855-450-FREE. And that's true of all of the religious books out there. Somebody wrote those, not God, and it was their best understanding of what they thought God was at that point in time. And that understanding should change over time as we learn more about our universe and as we learn more about ourselves. But I also agree that that's why I was saying before, I have a lot more respect for people who seek religion for their own personal reasons rather than going to some sort of organized religion where they're told how things are. I like the idea of somebody seeking on their own and making their own decisions about it.
Now, that is not to say that I don't think that one can read religious texts, ancient texts, and find God speaking to them through it. I just don't think that we should take the word of a bunch of Bronze Age tent dwellers and as, somehow the end-all, be-all of God's vision.
I like the idea that God is speaking to you in a lot of different ways. Whether or not you're aware of it or open to it is another question, but, I see it in song lyrics and I see it in a lot of different places.
Yeah,
well, yeah, of course. I think what God really is just a pattern recognition error in the human brain, which is what studies have shown.
Fine by me. I'll take it.
It's just people that just spot patterns when it's like, it's a bunny in the clouds. Well, therefore, there must be God.
I can't entirely disagree with what you say. However, that doesn't resonate with me, right? Like I searched and searched for years. The conclusion I came to was, I believe there's a God. And that's the truth for me. Yeah. I get that it may not be the truth for other people, and I will not vilify them, I will not jeer at them, and I will not refuse to vote for them simply because they're atheists. I just, you and I don't agree on that.
I have a lot of respect for atheists. I was one for a good solid decade to 13 or so years of my life. And then I discovered the ideas of panentheism, which I happen to like better. They make more sense to me.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.